let's get started. I think that even before introducing our master teacher today at the 19th Manfred Lehman Memorial Workshop in the History of the Jewish Book, I think it would be nice if we could go around the room and introduce ourselves briefly and say something about what brings you to today's workshop. So I'm Talia Fishman. I teach in the Department of Near Eastern Languages and Civilizations and am a member of the Jewish Studies program here at the University of Pennsylvania. And my areas of interest range widely within the medieval and early modern, the fields of medieval and early modern Jewish intellectual and cultural history. And it's my honor, along with Dr. Arthur Kiron, who's been bringing in the chairs, to coordinate this amazing 19-year-old workshop, which was initiated by our colleague, Professor David Stern, together with Barbie Lehman-Siegel, to whom we are so grateful and who has really enabled us as an intellectual community to become aware of arenas of scholarship and Jewish cultural enterprise that really were not well known before having been introduced here. And we do take pride in knowing that, and knowing that there have been ripple effects, and that this I would say that this particular workshop punches above its weight in terms of intellectual, educational, and cultural impact. So our gratitude to Barbie for organizing. So I've introduced myself. Okay. Now you get to say something.
So I'm Barbie Lehman-Siegel. I live in Silver Spring, Maryland. I am very grateful, when you said you're grateful to me, I'm very grateful that we've done this workshop now for 19 years, which is quite a lot of years. It's in memory of my father, Manfred Lehman, who was a tremendous Ohev Sefer. He particularly enjoyed Kabbalah. I don't know why, but we never really discussed that. And he collected. Yeah,
Even though he was a Yekka.
He was very much a Yekka. That's what I don't understand. But he had such an eclectic interest in such a wide variety of streams of scholarship, Judaica. So it's just a pleasure to have you here and to continue to study various aspects of the Jewish culture and Jewish Sefer. So thank you for coming.
Thank you. We're looking at you, David.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
My name is David Mayan. I'm a doctoral student in comparative theology at Boston College. My background interest in focuses and Hasidism, to some extent Kabbalah. That's really
Hi, Scott Bolton. Good to see everyone. Glad to be back. I've been at a couple of these. I'm a congregational rabbi in New York City at Congregation Or Zarua, which is a really dedicated learning community. I love this format, and I'm so grateful for 2 days of in-depth study as you've designed it. Interested deeply in the way of rabbinic and communal congregational life and the intersection with scholarship in general, and how we use it to inspire and create more conversation. And particularly in this area, I have an appointment with David Kramer in a few weeks to look for graphical maps of prayer experience in early modern Sidurim and ones that go backwards, and try to define whether or not they're mystical in their nature or not, if they're any different from graphical maps and the like that you're presenting on. And it just was like unbelievable. Is it odd or is it God moment?
I'm Ben. I'm a doctoral student in the Department of NELC here. I'm studying with Talia Fishman, Professor Talia Fishman.
And others.
And others in addition. I'm interested in the history of mysticism in addition to medieval Jewish and Islamic history.
I'm Roger Cohen. I'm a librarian at the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
I'm Arthur Kiron. I work here mainly for health insurance.
I'm Patrick Stevens. I'm a selector for Jewish Studies at Cornell University Library.
as curator of the Icelandic collection, which has almost nothing to do with this. But we'll see.
Maybe.
You never know.
I'm happy to be here and to take notes from hearing you, sir.
Thank you.
Zachary Grayson, local attorney and Jewish book collector.
Nomi Kane Smolczynski, and I'm a graduate student at Touro Graduate Center in New York. I'm working on a dissertation on the Hida, which is Resho, in the early modern period, and his crossover into Kabbalah.
Hi, I'm Muslim. I work here in Kislak Center for now. I'm the special Judaica Special Collections cataloger, fellow in the rare special collections Judaica.
These are manuscripts.
I'm Shobal Sadler Feller. I'm a doctoral candidate in Jewish history, and I'm also part-time at Sotheby's as a Judaica cataloger.
Where are you a student?
At the university.
Oh, all right.
I'm Elaine Grossbard. I come as an independent. I'm Elaine Grossbard, and I come as an independent scholar from San Francisco, and my grandfather was also.
Wow.
I'm Eddie Paul. I'm head of bibliographic services at the Jewish Public Library in Montreal. I also oversee our verbal collection, and the reason I'm here is that we actually own a Kabbalistic scroll, which Yossi knew more about than I did when I wrote him a few years ago. So I'm here to catch up. I'm very excited to be here.
Ari Kinsberg, I'm an independent researcher and consultant interested in Hebrew printing and manuscript history and matters pertaining to Yiddishkeit in general.
My name is David Wachtel. I'm an appraiser and a researcher, and I'm here because I want to learn how to kill my enemies with practical Kabbalah.
That's next year's layman.
Are there many?
What? I saw his list. You're not on his short list. Don't worry.
Okay. All right, and now let me do an inadequate job of introducing our master teacher today. Yossi Chajes, aka J.H. Chajes, got his PhD from Yale University in 1999. He is currently an associate professor in the Department of Jewish History at the University of Haifa and the director of its Center for the Study of Jewish Cultures. Yossi has been a visiting professor at the Jewish Theological Seminary in New York, a fellow at the Israel Institute for Advanced Studies in Jerusalem, the Forschungskolleg Humanwissenschaften of Goethe University in Frankfurt, and a 3-time fellow right here at the Katz Center for Advanced Jewish Studies at the University of Pennsylvania. Chajes directs the Ilanot project, which is devoted to carrying out basic research of the understudied genre of Kabbalistic diagrams. His pioneering work has been awarded 4 Israel Science Foundation grants, the Friedenberg Prize for the outstanding ISF-funded project in the humanities, and most recently, a Volkswagen Foundation grant to develop the digital humanities project called Maps of God. Good title.
Wow.
Building a portal to visual Kabbalah. I think I'm going to stop there. He has some very interesting recent publications, some of which appeared in the advanced material that he sent to us.
That's true.
Thank you, Professor
you.
Chajes.
Thank you, Professor Fishman. I have to just tell you that this is as great an honor as it is an intimidating experience to come before you and share this material. It's a truly unprecedented event. Maybe not for you in terms of, you've had 18 layman workshops, but I don't think, I know that it's the case that no one has ever attempted to present this genre in a kind of panoramic way and with certain pedagogical expectations, I suppose one could say, to strike the correct balance between a very comprehensive survey on the one hand, and a presentation that will allow us a kind of granular, high-resolution engagement with the sources is very, very challenging. And I don't know, as we go into it, whether the way I've mapped it out will prove a success. But if it doesn't, I have made every effort. I can assure you, as opposed, Talia knows me for many years, as does Arthur. A few of you do, yeah. But sometimes I do things by the seat of my pants. Not this. Now we'll find out whether all of that investment pays off or whether I should go back to the seat of my pants. But we have. Let me just say a few words about the overall program. As you know. Oh, I also have. We have 6 sessions. I know that not everyone is able to attend both days or all of the sessions over both of the days, but there are 6. And the first session will be devoted to the very beginnings of Kabbalah and Kabbalistic images. I thought that it was important to begin at the beginning and give you a few select examples of what the place is of the diagram in the earliest extant Kabbalistic manuscripts. We'll get back to that very shortly. Session 2, right after lunch, will dive into Ilanot, the genre itself that is at the center of the workshop, looking both at the kind of prehistory of the Ilan as a metaphor, then a schema, and ultimately a genre, without, however, actually opening up a role. The first roles will open only in the 3rd session. I'll tell you more, of course, as we head into each session about our specific goals. The 3rd session will be devoted to the very earliest extant roles, or rotuli. I used to just call them scrolls until I got too many codicological bangs on the head from people who thought that it was just a scandal that I referred to vertically opening rolls as a scroll. So I'm really careful now not to make that mistake. But of course, I have to put up with everybody saying, "What's a rotulus?" But now you know.
Scroll people insist that you call a vertical
Codicologists do not want to hear the word scroll if you open the thing this way. Yes, it has to be a rotulus, or you hear from them about it. And in session 3 already, you'll see today some really extraordinary parchments that I have brought as facsimiles. There aren't any private collections that I know of that have these scrolls or rolls or rotuli that, and certainly not that we could borrow for the evening or for the late afternoon. But they're quite impressive. And in general, although I do have some materials to put on the board, I also wasn't sure from home how these booklets would come out and how readable the text would be. As much as possible over the next couple of days. Hi, David. One of the founders of the Layman Seminar, Professor David. The founder.
The creator.
Fresh from Harvard.
Very honored by your presence. Yes.
So you were saying over the course of the...
Yeah, I want to spend as much time as I can with these things open, on the table, and as I put on a Facebook post, that I made some small effort to use social media to get some awareness of the seminar out. But one of the things I wrote was we're going to do less PowerPoint and more just point. And that will begin really, especially with session 3. Session 4, tomorrow, the morning session is on probably the most extraordinary Ilan family of manuscripts that was ever created. It's at the centerpiece of the first phase of my Volkswagen Foundation project to create a digital edition of this family of manuscripts, and in particular the Oxford Witness. And then it may disappoint some of you now to realize that actually only the 5th and 6th sessions will be devoted to Lurianic Ilanot. They are extraordinary, and until now, particularly as an early modernist, as I am, my focus has been in large part on the Lurianic material. But because you really do need to understand the development of the genre, if this is a workshop devoted to understanding the genre, you have to go back, first of all. Second of all, because to get Lurianic Ilanot, you have to know some Lurianic Kabbalah. It's quite basically the situation with diagrams in a nutshell is this. If I were going to teach a class, which I wouldn't, on Euclidean diagrams from the manuscript tradition, it wouldn't really mean very much to people who had no background in Euclidean geometry. And in the very same way, teaching Lurianic Ilanot to people who don't have a familiarity with Lurianic Kabbalah really has its limits. You can point out certain superficial things, but it's really hard to appreciate it. I'm going to do my best to isolate some things that will be meaningful, I hope, even to those who don't have a background in Lurianic Kabbalah. I didn't presume that anyone had a background in Lurianic Kabbalah because after many years of studying it, I still feel that I have hardly a background in Lurianic Kabbalah. So I have a certain amount of mercy on all of us in that regard. And as Chaim Vital said, Chaim Vital was Luria's most prominent disciple. The classical Kabbalah you can learn in a couple of days, but Lurianic Kabbalah, it's a quantum leap, really. So the fact that we're spending a good deal of our time on classical Kabbalah, as Vital said, means that we only have to worry about 10 sfirot and not about the Partsufim and so many other things that clutter the system, you might say, or make it more precise. But we will get to them. And I should say, for those of you who are considering playing hooky tomorrow, that I have a very special and frightening surprise tomorrow, in that the world's greatest collection of Lurianic scrolls is undoubtedly in the hands of a private collector based in northern Tel Aviv. Almost all of you, I'm sure, will know the name William Gross. And William Gross, I was going to say something about him anyway at the beginning of this first session. I call him the visionary of the Ilanot project, and I think it's only right. Let me first finish what I was going to say a moment ago before I tell you a little bit more about William and the genesis of the academic study of Ilanot. Bill hoped to be with us at the workshop, and had he been at the workshop, the presumption was he would bring some goodies. In the end, thankfully, he's not with us for any sad reason. He's about to celebrate his 80th birthday, and he decided to go with his wife and a couple of friends to Japan. And this was the week of the trip to Japan, so he couldn't join us, but he insisted that just a few days ago, I come to his apartment and take some Ilanot from his collection to bring to Philadelphia to share with you. So we will not only be avoiding overuse of PowerPoint, and we will not only be using facsimiles that I had printed last week in Israel, but tomorrow we will be opening up Bill's, I brought 4 Ilanot from Bill's collection.
Wow.
and Bill wasn't worried about them. Arthur is more worried about them than Bill, which is sweet. But Bill, I was also worried about them. But Bill spent most of the afternoon trying to reassure me that it was okay, and that I needn't worry that they have no insurance, and that I could never afford to replace them. But
We know where your children are.
my goodness. So we just have to hope that the safe in the Holiday Inn is safe. Okay, so that's a very quick overview. I do. Let me just say one more thing about Bill Grosso before we jump into the material, and that is that about 40 years ago, Bill bought his first Ilan at an auction because he thought it was interesting looking. Bill's criteria for acquisitions are primarily aesthetic. If he thinks something is interesting visually, it's a potential acquisition. So when he saw these rotuli, these vertical scrolls with all kinds of strange drawings on them, he began buying. And not long thereafter, he began turning to the well-known scholars of Kabbalah. Bill, I should say, and again, maybe many of you know this already, but Bill is also, as you could tell from the story I told you a moment ago, is extremely generous, extremely open, extremely sharing of his materials. And the primary beneficiaries, besides museums, I think it's fair to say, to which he constantly is loaning out his materials. The primary beneficiaries is the academic community, who he's constantly inviting to visit his home, and I'm not the first person to whom he's given materials to take home or to take abroad. In this case, he was collecting something, and he wasn't himself clear about what it was he was collecting. So he began asking professors of Kabbalah. Why does he know professors of Kabbalah? Because either they're interested in the material that he has, or I would just say, at the very least, Bill's collection probably furnishes more people with eye candy for their book covers than just about anybody else. If you see any book on Kabbalah and it has some kind of cool Kabbalah image on the cover, see if it says it with thanks to the William Gross family collection on the inside somewhere. So as eye candy, he's a big supplier. The eye candy man, we could call him in kind of the shul lingo. So he starts asking Kabbalah professors, what is this? What are these rolls? And one after another, he's given the same response. We don't know. There's no scholarship on them. You walk in, you approach the Sholem Library at the National Library, and and then you see a kind of wallpaper, reproductions, huge enlargements of Lurianic Ilanot beside the doorway. You go in and you see more of these. This is a real eye candy. Ask anyone in the Sholem Library a decade ago, what are these? We don't know. It's pure eye candy. So roughly a decade ago, William was having one of these conversations with Moshe Idel, my teacher, and Moshe said to him, which is an amazing response from Moshe Idel, for those of you who have been living in a sensory deprivation tank for the last 40 years. But I don't know. Never studied them. Nobody's ever studied them. And Moshe recommended that Bill hire one of his jobless former PhD students, who happens to be a buddy of mine, Menachem Kalus. And he said, pay Menachem. Menachem will write a document for you that will describe what is visualized in these materials. And And the reason I discovered Ilanot was Shabbat lunch at Menachem's house, seeing some of the little reproductions that he had made already for himself, and talking to him about it, and a quick cartoony light bulb over my head, with the realization that, first of all, if I could get some funding, that Menachem could get a postdoc out of it. Secondly, that even if, Menachem was very interested in the Lurianic Kabbalah of these artifacts. As is typical of intellectual historians, for the most part, a very little interest in the visual dimension, and you could say the visual problem of these sources. He was interested in the texts, as you'll come to see. Already the classical Ilanot have, at times, an abundance of text inscribed in and around the diagrammatic figures. But when I looked at them, I thought, he looked at them and saw Lurianic texts, like what part of Etz Chaim is inscribed where. When I looked at them and then I thought, wow, who made those? Why did they make those? How did they use those? Where are these languages these visual languages coming from that they're using? Lots of other kinds of questions. And I thought, oh, this is a nice potential collaboration. I'll bring what I can to it. At that time, I was thinking far less about the texts and more about the artifacts and their use kind of almost more anthropologically than pure hardcore Kabbalistically. And in any case, that is how it began, and we've come a fairly long way. A lot of basic research has taken place over the last decade because it was basic research. The publications are now only surfacing. Also, sometimes journals take 3 years to publish something, but in a way, I feel a bit embarrassed that there is so little to share with you, but I also am happy that I didn't publish certain things a few years ago, because now I would be embarrassed, because I'm constantly refining my understanding of these materials, particularly the early materials, which I've been playing catch up on for the last 3 or 4 years especially. So let's begin, because I know we don't have, it feels like on the one hand we have a lot of time, and also I know it's just going to fly right by. I asked if you could kindly have a quick look at Scholem's Encyclopedia Judaica entry on the Sfirot, because for these first few sessions on classical Kabbalah, really all you need to know from a technical point of view is that the defining feature of Kabbalah as a form of Jewish esotericism is that it images God as these 10 hypostatic powers known as the Sfirot. You could say a little bit more, like the fact that they have a kind of polarity, a male-female polarity. Elliot Wolfson would certainly want to include that in his definition of Kabbalah. But let's just say Sfirot, God is imaged as the 10 Sfirot, and you could add to it perhaps something about a notion that by a kind of theurgic notion that how one acts directly impacts the state of God imaged as the 10 Sfirot. So either you are improving the connectivity, the divine intra-connectivity, or you are disrupting it and further distressing the system and disrupting the flow particularly between the male and female principles that are so much emphasized maybe some of you, even with the relatively minimal backgrounds in Kabbalah, have some inkling of what I mean from this way of speaking about the Blessed One, Holy One, blessed be He, the Kadosh Baruch Hu, and the Shekhinah. So much of, especially in the later periods of Kabbalah and Chassidut and Hasidism, there's even a kind of almost a mantra that people say before the performance of any commandment. I'm doing this for the sake of bringing together the Holy One, blessed be He, and the Shekhinah. These are expressions of the Godhead that are associated with the nodes in the spherotic system that we refer to as the Sphira of Tiferet and the Sphira of Malchut. And you'll see a lot of pictures of this. I'll show you in a moment some diagrams if that's not entirely clear. But this is also kind of the central pathos of Kabbalah, what lends so much meaning to the life of a person who adopts this point of view in their life. If I do something good, I am bringing about a union of the Blessed Holy One and the Shekhinah. God forbid if I do something bad, I'm disrupting that union. So it makes every action seem so powerful and so pregnant with meaning. And another thing that Edel said once that was very memorable to me was that Kabbalah is the Jewish version of what many you know as from Lovejoy, the great chain of being. This is a kind of Platonic framework, and the chidush of Kabbalah is that at the end of the chain there is a Jew yanking it. So the great chain of being with a Jew yanking the chain is another perfectly acceptable definition of Kabbalah. So this may be not exactly Edel's words, but you get the point. So as we jump into the material, I want to show you both some literary sources and some visual early sources that I think will kind of set the stage. So if the sfirot become the kind of characteristic feature of the form of Jewish esotericism that we call Kabbalah, are there any questions at this point? Feel free also to interrupt. I think that we won't stand on ceremony. Yes,
just a question from what you said at the very beginning about codicologists objecting to use of the word scroll when it's opened vertically. In Hebrew, is there any corresponding term, or classically, is there any distinction?
No. You don't. I will, in the second session on metaphor, schema, genre, I'll speak a little bit more about terminology. I think it's quite important. But you tend to see mostly terms like Yiri'ah more than even Megillah used to refer to these things. But it wouldn't be, I think, I don't think that there is an emek, an inner Jewish parallel to the scroll rhodolith distinction. I'm happy to hear otherwise, but I only know of the term Megillah in Hebrew for such a rolling.
Yiri'ah, usually I would think of it as a plaque, as a hanging plaque rather than something that's rolled.
Well, the Yiri'ah just is a sheet, it's a parchment sheet. Tachrich. I've seen it, but I think that's a Malachi Beit Arya neologism. I'm not sure, I don't think it's found so much in the sources. Tachrich. I've seen that he uses that in his catalog descriptions. I think he made it up so that there would be a Jewish parallel to rhodolith. I know exactly in his book on Hebrew manuscripts, he uses that term. And I took note of it and was debating whether I should adopt it myself. But I don't think, sort of like rhodolist, nobody knows what you're talking about. When you say tachrich, it doesn't matter.
Connotation. It has a sad connotation.
Yeah, exactly, isn't it?
You checked Ben Yehuda on that? Just to
I don't think that I did, but I think he himself, if I remember, has a footnote
says
there
it's in the
where
Alma
he's, I think so, but on this one and on everything, I invite you to double check me. Okay, let's jump in. Don't even know. Let's just. You can even open your little program. Let me see where. How do I get back into this thing? Let's see. This is the first image. Is this Kabbalistic? Is this Kabbalistic? It's nice, some nice eye candy. This is not too far from here. It's in Princeton University's Art Museum. There is such a thing, of course, as Christian Kabbalah. We won't talk too much about it, although tomorrow there'll be a little time. It's not Kabbalistic. I mean, I suppose that there's a giveaway here. I put what it was. It is basically kind of family tree. It's a kind of arbor of Jesse. It's not exactly an arbor of Jesse, but it is a mid-14th century use of a kind of Porphyrian tree to show the genealogy of Jesus in a manner that reconciles the genealogies in Matthew and Luke. Obviously very selectively drawn from the genealogies in the New Testament. He has more than, whatever, this many ancestors, but selectively adopted. And the next page also, same, obviously, rhetorical question. Is this Kabbalistic? This is actually a Porphyrian tree.
Is this a reference to porphyry?
This is a reference.
Can you say something?
This is the Porphyrian tree is the name given to diagrams that feature in very early manuscripts of Porphyry's commentary on Aristotle's categories. There are often 10 nodes in these Porphyrian trees, and in that context of Aristotle's categories, they are used to do a kind of drill down of the scale of being from everybody or everything to, you can like everything, and some of everything are people and some are non-people, and some people are, and you drill down until you get to usually Plato and Aristotle or something at the very bottom of the tree. So this was a very commonly used schema that became associated with Porphyry's commentary, although it's not known for certain whether Porphyry originally created this diagram as part of his commentary. We do know, but most historians agree that Aristotle already used diagrams in his works, but we don't have such ancient manuscripts in any case. What I'm trying to quickly get across is that the kinds of the Kabbalistic tree that we generally rush to, I should say, the tree that we generally rush to identify with Kabbalah is actually simply an appropriation of what was, I think it's fair to say, the most common schema used in medieval natural philosophy. It was used in the way that I've just shown you in these two examples for genealogy. It was used, and in this more philosophical context, some of the readings I gave you speak about additional uses for the tree. One thing that we'll see very quickly already in this morning's session, I hope, is that really the big difference between the Kabbalistic use of this schema and the natural philosophical uses of this schema and genealogical uses and so forth, the main difference is that the Kabbalists have ontologized it, that they are no longer simply using a diagrammatic figure in order to show what is central and what is peripheral, or how either people genealogically or concepts are related to one another, but they're actually making a claim that the schema reflects the actual structure of the Godhead. We'll see that especially in session 2. It doesn't mean that there is one picture of the structure of the Godhead that emerges in the late 12th century or the early 13th century with the emergence of Kabbalah, and all the Kabbalists agree that the Godhead looks like a Porphyrian tree. That isn't true. This is a process that takes some time. It sort of percolates, and we're going to look at that in this session already. But these figures are very much in the background, and one of the sort of larger claims that I would make for the provenance or the sources of the Kabbalistic visualizations of the divine is that Kabbalists understood themselves to be engaged in divine science. Chokhmah tanistar, chokhmah Elohit. Chokhmah is wisdom, but also means science in medieval Hebrew. And it would be absolutely natural, as far as they were concerned, to make use of the central schemata of the medieval sciences. Now, there are arguably, but I think most historians of medieval science would probably agree, two most prestigious and prominent areas of medieval science at more or less the time of the emergence of Kabbalah: astronomy and natural philosophy. Natural philosophy, if you had to say what's the most prominent diagram that you'll find in natural philosophical treatises, it's I think the arboreal figure is a good candidate. The most common diagrammatic figure in the astronomical tradition, going back to the ancient Greeks and as mediated through the Arabic traditions in the early 9th, 10th centuries, is concentric circles. And from my point of view, there is it's no coincidence in the fact that for medieval Kabbalists there are, and even as we'll see tomorrow, well into Lurianic Kabbalah, there are two primary visualizations of the divine structure. One of them is arboreal and one of them is concentric circles. These are the two most prominent figures in the medieval science traditions in their most prestigious fields of natural philosophy and astronomy.
Are those the only two?
Are those the only two figures? No, there are squares of opposition, there are tables, there are wind diagrams. We see those as well.
Speaking in terms of the idea of ontologizing.
In the Kabbalistic works, those are the dominant figures that are ontologized.
So no, I'm sorry, I don't need to take up time.
No, it's okay.
So no, it's really interesting. They're taking over these pagan scientific ways of describing the world, the universe, and then we already see here that you have those two come out in Kabbalistic. What the change is they're not just sort of pedagogic; they become ways of.
Yes.
They're descriptions of the reality of God's actual kind of non-shaped.
Yes.
But so are the other shapes besides the tree and the circle inside a circle, are those then kind of retreat to the level of just diagrams? Or do
I see
they-
what you're asking.
Do they become themselves alternative
Right.
ontologies?
I think we will be able to point at additional figures that have an ontological reality in the eyes of Kabbalists as we go through. And one of the things I will point out in the second session is with the example taken from Cordevero's Pardes Rimonim, that the Kabbalists themselves can be, in this case, Cordovero is very clear when he's presenting an image, a diagrammatic image that is not meant to be taken as ontologically true. He makes the distinction between an image that has pedagogical value, that is communicating an idea, that is symbolic, versus an image that is a map that corresponds to the actual topography of the Godhead. And he thinks it's his mission in one of the she'arim, one of the gates or larger chapter headings of the Pardes Rimonim, to make that distinction and to reach a kind of verdict on what is the correct shape of the Godhead.
I have a question to follow up on.
Sure.
I think I must mention to you, these are, Nicholas Blear is not the only type of diagram of this.
That's right.
There's earlier ones, actually, that go back to like the 13th century.
You're speaking about the
Peter Patway's,
Peter of, that's right.
Chronicle. There are also, more trees, but there's world history.
Absolutely. Ramon Lul.
Yeah, well, Raymond Lul is later, but
13th century, but okay.
yeah, later.
Right?
But
Yeah.
There's earlier ones, actually.
Right.
Mainly in France and England. But those, I've been interested in those, because the historical ones really are temporal.
Yes.
The genealogical ones.
That's right.
And so the question is whether that temporality is being carried over into the Zoharic diagrams. Which is to say, is this an unfolding?
This is just so that you can see, I'm just opening up a PDF in real time here, so you can see what David is referring to. I'm sure I have a better reproduction elsewhere, but these are sort of very reminiscent of some of our actually later Ilanot.
There's ones on,
I know there's some beautiful ones online, but you can see, yes.
Which are just eerily.
They do really look like our scrolls. They use a lot of arboreal schemata and others.
Sort of connecting circles and so on. But there, my point is simply, those are they're temporal.
These are genealogies of world histories and histories
These
of.
are progressing. They're
That's
using
correct.
column form as a way of representing time.
Absolutely.
It's a timeline.
So here's the.
So a concentric circle is not a timeline.
That's
It's really
correct.
spatial.
That's correct.
So what I'm asking is sort of how much does that distinction actually feed into these? Maybe you'll get to this later.
I absolutely will, but for now I will say this. The classical Ilanot that we'll be looking at today and at the very beginning of tomorrow do not represent the Godhead in developmental terms. This is the distinguishing difference, I think it's fair to say, between those classical parchments and the Lurianic Ilanot that are developed only in the middle of the 17th century. So the chronological divide between these eerily similar rhodoli and Kabbalistic Ilanot is so great that all we can really say is that they're using similar, or often the same schemata and some of the same kind of languages, visual languages and techniques of wedding text and commentary to a developmental sequence that's pictured in this way. as do the Lurianic rhodolith makers beginning in the middle of the 17th century, but with no evident direct influence of any kind. It's simply when Lurianic Kabbalists of the 17th century
Jews
begin.
have seen them and realize this is a way that we can actually represent this road.
I see what you mean. I see.
You know, they didn't have to understand what the genealogical or the Jesse really was, or the details.
Well, the thing
it's like, I mean, it could be like the gloss page, the Talmudic page, it's the same thing. It comes from a Christian page format. Jews were exposed through taking manuscripts as collateral for loans.
Well, believe it or not,
they could have taken these things as
they could have, but they didn't need to, because if you look at the very oldest codices from the end of the 13th century, from which I'll show you now some diagrams, they are miscellanies, not one of which, but more than one of which contains things like Averroes and Ibn Sina, all kinds of Hebrew translations of Arabic commentaries on Aristotle with arboreal diagrams. In other words, they are they don't need to take any collateral. These people are involved in the transmission of materials that include hardcore Arabic into Hebrew translations of Greek philosophy and the Islamic commentaries on them that are widely studied, that include these materials, also astronomical materials as well. So it's in there. I mean, this is a very wonderful thing to look at, the whole codicology, which I feel badly that I haven't developed more extensively in this presentation. But one of the reasons why even on this page 6 of your booklet, I've shown you the whole page is it's a kind of wink in the direction of a larger codicological appreciation of the manuscript in which this diagram is to be found. I believe in the PDF that you version of this that I've shared with you, anything that's underlined is linked to the usually the National Library of Israel's catalog entry on the manuscript, and if whenever possible to the highest level entry on the manuscript, which shows you all of the treatises in the miscellany. And that was one of the main reasons that I wanted you to be able to see that, so that you would realize that we're not talking about a Kabbalah book. We're talking about, in most cases, miscellanies that include scientific works as well, with illustrations that are eerily similar, and not eerily similar, they just are the same schemata as the Kabbalists would use a few pages later. And one of the things that I occasionally emphasize, it will be in, it's a point that I make in a JQR article that may appear in early 2020. Take it for what it's worth. These schemata, in most geometrical forms, are so versatile and have been deployed in so many different conceptual contexts that it's really problematic to presume when you're studying diagrams that because two diagrams look similar that they mean the same thing, that they have something to do with one another. So this is
With that being said, I mean, there are families of there are families of Ilanot that, we've discussed this in the past, where we say, okay, this is like these others.
Oh yeah, I mean, for sure. If within a manuscript with a family and copying directly, it's fair enough. Also, I'll contradict myself and say, when you see concentric circles, it doesn't always mean the Ptolemaic cosmos, but it's worth asking what you're looking at if it's not.
I just want to illustrate what you said. The many graphic images of the human hand that can be used as a placeholder for remembering any scheme that you need.
Sure.
So since it's something that's accessible, you'll see so many medieval
right.
images of the hand.
That's right.
But what's imposed upon that could be just about anything.
Absolutely.
So these are mnemonic
That's an important Mary
anchors.
Carruthers
Right.
lesson.
Okay.
Very much so, very much so. I do want to also say that although the arboreal diagram, the tree diagram, is not something that has any ontological import outside of Kabbalah to the best of my knowledge, the concentric circle one certainly does. The concentric circle one, although it is a visualization of the invisible, people don't think that you can see the crystalline spheres that upon which are mounted the planets and the fixed stars and the zodiac and so forth. They're absolutely convinced that they're made out of a crystalline substance that is real, albeit not one of the four elements that only exists in the sublunar realm. So when the Kabbalists use this model of concentric circles, they're absolutely how do you say, mitkatevim. They're in dialogue. They're in dialogue with this most established representation of the cosmos as it's understood to be structured into the early modern period. So I want to now look at a few images, and then I do want to go. I want to get back to some trees. Which did I do first here? If you just look at page 6, I mentioned it already, and again, I encourage those of you who are interested in these kinds of questions of what books are copied together, which I think is fascinating in itself. What is going on here? I'm not showing it on a board. Let me see. I'm experimenting with a different way of, I didn't do a linear PowerPoint because, as I said before, I didn't really, it's a Prezi. So I threw a bunch of stuff on the desktop, and that will let us play. This is I do have a very lovely image from JTS as well. This is another version of the same diagram that you have on page 6. What I'd like to ask you to do, for now, is to take a minute or two, either on your own or with the person sitting next to you, to have a look at this diagram on page 6, or the one that I've put on the board. Maybe if I change the lighting, it'll be a bit easier.
Yeah, good idea.
Is this?
Yeah, Yofi. Sorry for us, though.
Which is better? Because you can see it pretty well in the picture, too, on page 6. I'll let you start with the picture.
Yeah,
this image, the images on page 6 and page 7 are from Codex Parma 2784, which is one of the oldest Kabbalistic manuscripts we have, perhaps the oldest. It was copied in the 1280s in Rome from Spanish manuscripts that are no longer extant. But I bring this to you in part to show you that in the very first Kabbalistic manuscripts that we have, that are Roman copies of early to mid 13th century Spanish sources, we have some very interesting diagrams. They don't exactly look like some that you may be familiar with. But what is going on here? Take a couple minutes and then we'll talk.
So the creation of the world.
Yeah.
More than 7, more than 7.
So would it be Shutsu? It seems to be the number of utterances that God said. After Brishi doesn't work, but the others are.
Right, the choke, you mean, yeah, so that's,
And then you got
those
that
are
one,
all
you got
different
that one.
body parts.
This one is
what's-
interesting. The
oh,
first one
cool.
is Moa.
Read. You have to show small.
Well, these are the.
Shal, Kochav. Right, so then it's Bri.
Small.
Man, I can't make out what's in the very middle.
Various strengths.
These would be parts of the body.
For the brain.
Now,
What is talk about? The book we're gonna
Then
pour?
Galgalim.
true.
We're gonna find out.
Chech.
Oh, chech.
What is it?
Chech. It's chech.
Tongue. No, he says tongue.
Oh, whatever. I mean, yeah, it's true.
Body, the face.
Because you have lashon next.
Okay,
You
uh-huh,
know, palate.
Yeah,
Could be palate.
it has something to do with taste.
Oh, so it's
These are body parts, but
what's body sensitive?
body parts because
He has his
Yeah.
roa.
Roller strokes, the last one is
Oh, you
great.
don't want to go this Galgal,
Male body.
yeah, Galgal, Laban, or whatever it is.
It is in this.
So that was under the body shop.
Cycles,
Okay, all right. Thanks. Thank you.
concentric circles.
Does he mention that in his footnote there?
Galgal
Did he mention it?
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
There's Galgal.
10. Galgal,
The one that's on.
Galgal, and those zodiac lines, right? And then Shabtai.
Then what's the 10th body part?
It is, it could be Saturn. It also has a relationship to the Jewish people. The next one, I'm not sure. I'm not getting that one. The next one looks
These are all
like
psukim,
Mars.
these are all psukim from
Mars.
British.
And then Chama,
Rashid,
then
Yoria,
Noga.
Yekavamai,
So it should be more central.
Yeah, well, and then the next one is Noga, that's Venus.
4, 5, 6,
And then the next one should be the moon, but
Kochab. Kochab Brit.
Brit was from the
Oh, that Brit is from the previous one.
Oh, and the bottom one is Kochab Levanat.
So that's the moon.
Levanat. So Kochab, I've forgotten which.
There's a Tayyad.
No, Noga is Venus, and I've forgotten.
Sarah,
And what comes after Venus?
After Venus is Kochab.
Well, that was
Short
like
letters,
Kochab,
and then
and
the
then
next
that
one is
is-
Levanat. And we're sub.
Okay. Oh, you're doing pretty well here.
What, that's teamwork.
yeah, Shem,
So here we have all these numbers. So what is the number of individual zero without moving?
No, I
Shell,
think they're, from like Sefer Yetzirah,
the last line there's
you know,
Akash.
they're the elemental, foundational
I thought there were only
numerals.
4 elements plus
No, no,
quintessential.
foundational, just the numerals that comprise
Oh,
universal, kind of Pythagorean.
Up to rotation with Esther.
Esther is,
Okay.
In the middle here, here's Esther.
I'm hearing that it's not causing great problems. You're having good success with this.
well, we have some
Targil.
questions.
I'm sure you do. Let's hear then.
So should we, are people ready for us to turn the light off, or maybe a
Should
little
we-
more time?
More time, a little more time, another minute, or you okay?
People down there?
Let's look at this one.
Let's look at this one.
Yeah, we're gonna turn the light off, so,
By the way,
to
this is a
corroborate.
diagram that appears in the earliest manuscripts and keeps on showing up. It has a long afterlife. What's going on here? What do you make of it?
We don't have gifts there.
There's a bit of additional material. Hor vacui means you have to always fill in as much space as you can. But the main, the main lines of this are identical to what we find in the Parma manuscript. What do you see? What
There was a series of decades, a series of 10 items in each of the arms, in each of the spokes, you know, rotating out, starting from the outside going in.
Right.
So on the right, upper right quadrant, those are the Aseret HaDibrot.
10 Commandments are here.
And on the next to the left is the Sfirot.
10
as we know
Sfirot.
them. Then there's these are the supernal spheres, Galgal, Chashmal,
Hasechel.
Asechel, excuse me. Oh, I thought it was Chashmal.
That's that.
As in Isaiah.
Right.
We couldn't
Don't worry, we'll
remember
get
all.
back to the chashmal later.
And then Gal Shabtai, Tzedek, so different planetary.
The spheres.
Right. Now, and then your body parts coming from the bottom left.
Mm-hmm.
You have Moach, Chek,
Chech, yeah.
Lashon,
Zoro Yamin,
Zro Yamin, Zro Small,
Chut HaShidra,
Chut
the
HaShidra,
spinal cord,
Shok Yamin, Shok
right
Small,
thigh, left thigh.
Brit, and then was the next one we thought it might be Lev.
Oh, you have, oh, do we have, I think Brit is the
Brit.
last one on ours?
No, there's one underneath.
Oh, there's one
But
on.
they run, then they start, as it gets very, very narrow in, they start to run
What,
together.
what did it say?
Oh,
Oh,
no,
no, God.
no,
Brit,
I don't think
Zev,
so.
some
I
Lev
think
is
that
from
the thing to
Galgal.
the right is
Oh.
Galgalavana.
Yeah.
It's not
Should have
Lev, it's
something.
Galgalavana from
Yeah.
the column to the right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we can check, but that's the idea. It doesn't matter
There is
exactly.
something there.
Two more. You're,
What's it, but just what's after Brit in the body parts? Gav?
God's over here.
does it say
Oh,
Gav?
Well, Lev makes more sense.
It's funny that they would, right? It does seem to say Lev here.
Lev, no,
That's
on
part
the-
of Galgal
I do thought
Levana.
it was.
Ah.
No, but here also, this looks
Oh,
like
right,
Lev.
you're right. It is Galgal Levana. It also
it-
looks
but it
like
also
Gav
says
afterwards.
Lev.
Yeah, it does
Yeah, but
say
if
Gav.
you look
Gav.
No, you're right, David.
You have Galgal Levana, and then the first
it
word
does
here
say
is
Lev.
Lev. I can't
And
stand
then
on my
there's
head
something
anymore.
else.
I know, and I guess there is a way with Prezi of
There you
spinning
go.
it
Up,
around,
up,
but
up,
I'm not
up,
even
up.
sure.
There you go. The next one.
Is that a, you want a PC or not?
Little up
I'm on
to
a
the
Mac.
left,
Oh,
to
no.
the left.
But
But anyway, the next spoke is all the numbers 1 through 10, and the
Mhm.
final spoke is verses from the first pericope of.
yeah, not just any verses, but the famous.
Right.
That's right.
What, that's Asara Mama Aram.
The 10
That's a-
utterances of creation. The first one being Bereshit. It's called the Ma'amar Hasatum because it doesn't say Vayomer before. These are the 10 places in the beginning of Genesis where it says, "And God said, let there be." Now, this is an easy one for anyone who had the chance to even look at the first 3 or 4 pages of the Faith Wallace article. But so if you have looked at the Faith Wallace article, it's easy, I think, to think about how else might this same information have been presented if we were simply working in the interest of clarity, right? I think I don't mean to skip a step, but if I have this, perhaps the step is simply to say, we have here 6, as you said, 6 things that there are 10 of. Presumably, you could read these things as being as a table, precisely. If you had them lined up in a table, you could see that, okay, Chokhmah corresponds to Lo Yiyelecha, corresponds to Yehi Or, presuming that there is a statement being made about their comparable placement in the 10 and some kind of esoteric relationship between those things.
It's assuming there's no polarity, that what's opposite is.
Yeah, I don't think that there's polarity in us in this kind of schema,
Well, there's hierarchy.
but there's certainly hierarchy.
Yeah.
Could you explain what polarity means?
Just that one column opposite the other column has some equivalence of the placement.
Right. I mean, it's certainly not out of the question that we could look for such a thing. I don't think in this case such a polarity is obvious, but yeah. Did you want to say something?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, haven't we seen the arboreal diagrams, which in addition to the main heading of Keter, Chokhmah, Bina, right, also have some of these other elements in smaller text within the same.
Within the medallions of
Yeah.
the arboreal diagram, we do indeed see that. Anyone else want to comment? I would say, in the most straightforward manner, that the added value of taking what would be a fairly intelligible and easily readable tabular arrangement of this data and transforming it into a circle with these spokes or propeller columns, the added value is that a very strong subtext of this language, of this visual language, is that the kind of the embracing ontological structure of the whole is that well-established Ptolemaic, cosmological.
It's totalizing. It says this is the sum of all.
It's totalizing with that very distinctive language of the astronomical picture of the cosmos. Like it's the message is all of these things are tens. They are so the tenness is somehow woven into the basic nature of the cosmos, and we want to convey also that the holding structure, that the basic pattern is that of the cosmos as we know it from the scientific Greco-Arabic astronomical tradition. It's not.
Doesn't it also imply that there's nothing we've left out? In other words, you might find other schemata of decads, but this is it.
So in that, that's what you mean by the totalizing.
Yeah, like this is Aleph to Taf and Vitu Lo.
Yeah.
But it's also the shape. It's the shape that does that, because a square table renders it to be, if you will, two-dimensional.
Mm-hmm.
It's the fact that it is a circle that allows for the manipulation and the fullness of the totality, so that your eye has to move all the way around, because there is no beginning and end, and I think that
nice.
is what gives the depth.
Yes, I agree.
That a table doesn't.
Two things to also remember. When you see a two-dimensional concentric circle diagram, they wanted you, you say tip of the hat to Mary Carruthers, they wanted you to mentally manipulate it, or at least know that these are concentric spheres, not concentric circles, but these are spheres. Yes?
With this one particularly that we've looked at before, context of thinking about Asra Ma'amarim, things like this that were already located in Pirkei Avot.
Mm-hmm.
The world, not so much a philosophy towards the end of the rabbinic period into Gaonic period, but the world of any kind of medicinal world, always I thought was of influence for folks. And the early botanical drawings in more of the 6th century, 7th century, 8th century, of certain plants and ferns.
Yes.
To me, always struck me as this
Oh,
flower
interesting.
form. And I think it's an interesting question whether or not there's real botanical links, medicinal links, to what we've thought about as being philosophical.
It could be. I haven't seen those. I'm open to it. One of the things that I've been looking at recently and haven't been able to get, I was hoping to find people who knew more about it than I did. But another thing that Faith Wallace has worked on is Isidore of Seville and his seminal natural philosophical works that kind of created the medieval curriculum, and seeing how these diagrams, not only they sort of look like Venn diagrams that he has of usually the quadrinities of all of the things of fours. The natural philosophical diagrams are very four-oriented. Kabbalists love fours also, but here we have the tens, as Talia insisted.
I'm not a scholar of
You
those
see
drawings, but you can see it in some of the early fern pieces. that were
The-
blind before their leaves and or they're inside the stems, kind of the
What cultures
properties.
are these found?
So this
Where are
this
these
is
drawings from?
this is some of the early work that's coming in the medieval kind of theater, I think. Pre-Middle Ages medicinal. I'm not remembering exactly which manuscript, so this is not my field, of course. But I am remembering that there's some new work being done based on those drawings by an artist who has had a new book about them. I just called up the Wall Street Journal article about her book. And she was looking back at these, and both the spirals and the petals, if you will, kind of make their appearance in those drawings of ferns to give you this lifelike structure of this blossoming or blooming plants, which is cosmologically, I think, somewhat parallel to the kind of notion they were hoping of having us investigate the world of divine.
Okay. I'm very interested.
That are fern-like. You know what I'm talking about? Four petals that Jerusalem is the center.
Yes,
exactly.
Those are three.
By the way, I do want to, I feel like an argument, at least you don't, it's admittedly not in the Parma diagram, but in very many copies of this diagram, this one being quite early as well, this Oxford manuscript, Aretz. And that's exactly the point I wanted to make. The primacy of the cosmological spheres is, I think, asserted by the fact that in the very center of this floral arrangement, if you want to look at it botanically, is Aretz and Dafka. So you see, I think that that's a kind of statement about the primacy of the cosmological imaging of this. Now,
So it's not in the Parma one?
It is not in Parma, but I mean, I chose Parma because I wanted to show you the earliest one that I could find. But I can show you 10 other relatively early 13th, 14th century manuscripts in which you'll see Aretz. And
so what does that mean? I would think that Aretz is one of the lowest levels.
It is. But it's the center.
As you go to the center, you're getting toward, you go up.
Away from the divine.
No, you have Malchut here, you have the 10th of the 10 Commandments, you have the lunar sphere here is the lowest.
You could also see it as affirming the theological perspective that the world was created for the sake of man, which is, rabbinic and
yeah. Well, you have Pru or Vu is this is the last one here, isn't it?
So the Aretz, even though it comes under Keter Malchut,
yeah.
So that's literally, that label is strictly for the whole inner medallion.
That's what you see,
Right.
And this is getting back to that Faith Wallace about that. Now, Faith Wallace speaks about taking this kind of information and putting it into, let's say, a cruciform schema. And Bianca Köhnel's work has also been very much devoted to showing what happens when you take information that could be presented in a clear diagrammatic manner, and nevertheless sort of force it into a form that has a religious significance, to show that you're kind of committed to reconciling the systems, or that it is ultimately a Christian message that is part of this.
Just want to follow David. I mean, the Aretz is not in the center of the center. It's at the bottom of the Sephirot, right?
In this one, I could open up some other
I
ones.
mean, Talia's question is, doesn't it show that everything is made for, the sake of the world? It's kind of the earth is at the center of the universe.
Mm-hmm. Geocentric
It's a geocentric
model.
But not in this example. It's actually.
It's not precisely in the middle. You have the hole from the.
Is there an actual
Yeah, you can. They.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah, that's the hole from the machog, from the compass.
The compass.
Compass, you call it, to make
Compass.
the. Yeah. like you send your kids to school with?
That's how it was contextual. It was actually mounted on a.
No, I think the scribe had a tool to make these circles that had a point that created a perforation of the page at that point. You see that very often. And occasionally, threaded through that hole will be cut discs, the volvels, which I have sort of an obsession with. Yes, please.
Is that a perforation?
That's a perforation. I mean,
And I'm looking at this one also.
But get schmutzy after 500 years.
Please.
So there'd be pieces of parchment that were cut out, and you could spin them. You could like to line things up.
Whereas when you have up there, it's in its place.
Zachor.
Zachor is the dibrot, and
Ah.
this one is pulled out and is all the way as the interior, and on the one you're showing, it's in its place.
I see what you mean.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It looks like he
Maybe you forgot.
made a little mistake. Ein makshin al adrash. No, yeah, he looks like he had to fill it in later. Maybe it's also it does seem to be just simply a mistake, but that is important as the particulars are, and the placement was the kind of overarching message of the tens, that everything is structured into the tens, and the tens is perhaps best visualized in this form that matches what we know from the Torah and from the Kabbalah to the scientific understanding of the structure of the cosmos. It's real. The Ten Commandments, again, the Christians have the divine quadrinities of the 4 elements and the 4 seasons and the 4 directions and the 4 gospels, and this is an assertion of the tenness of the cosmos with the axiomatic statement of Sefer Yetzirah, the pre-Kabbalistic text that says there are 10 sfirot, and the Kabbalists, this is a denary system that is again more important as a statement about the overall tenness of the world than it is concerned with perhaps whether Aretz is written in the upper half of the circle or the lower half of the circle, or whether they've maybe made a little mistake in the ordering of the commandments. The main thing is you get it. There are 10, and our esoteric tradition, it includes rabbinic material that's pre-Kabbalistic, as someone pointed out, is and also maps to the human body. Obviously, the rabbis speak about the 613 body parts, the Shasa, Gidim, Ramach Evarim, and Shasa, Gidim. Here there are 10 body parts that why 10? They chose 10 because the 10 was what was important to them, not necessarily exactly which body parts they were. There are 10 very important body parts. But what are you going to say? And then, yes, anyway. Yes, please.
The 10 lists in terms of hierarchies, they're all decreasing?
Well, it's interesting. In general, the Lurianic Kabbalists will make much of this. In the arboreal schema, center is closer to infinite, which means you could, to use a kind of like Shlomo language, it's deeper and higher. Okay? Now, and in the concentric model, the encompassing, the periphery is higher and deeper and more proximate to the infinite than the center, right? Because in the concentric model of the cosmogonic process, the infinite is the ground, is the background of all, and creation begins by with a sequence of spherical, if you're a Kabbalist, spherical emanations, but that as you go further and further into the center, you're getting farther and farther away from the infinite ground.
So just in terms of,
So
Eretz being in the middle, Dr. Fishman said that all these different things are all going down, that's the purpose of everything. So Eretz said,
I could have been wrong.
No,
I mean, it is the center.
Important or it's
Well,
most important?
look, you ever hear it says Sof Maaseh b'machshava tchila?
Yeah.
That's the point also that's made by Rabbi Yitzchak de Minako in the Meirat Einaim text that is still supposed to be part of our curriculum for this session. But no, don't be sorry at all. I just want you're onto something. It's both. What can you say? It's the end point of the process of creation, and so it's furthest away from either Keter or Anochi or Bereshit. But because we say the last thing created was the telos, so the goal of it all. Acharon Chaviv. That's how we would say it today. One more little targil, which is on page 7.
Should we turn on?
Please. We can do. Yeah. I mean, it's all these things I covered sort of both ways because I wasn't sure what was going to be better. From the same manuscript. Let's have a look just quickly. This has to be one of the most durable icons of Kabbalah. I think I may have even thrown it onto my Prezi desktop here. Did I do it? Well, here, I wanted to, while Barbie was with us, I wanted to make sure that you could see one of her family's extraordinary Ilanot. This is the very top of the so-called Kopio scroll. This is a beautiful copy of this North African scroll by a Kabbalist named Michael Kopio. More about him tomorrow, but even for now to show you how 700 or so years after the Parma diagram, this is still serving Kabbalists well. The Kabbalistic system has changed dramatically from the 13th century to the 18th century, 19th century, but and now I think, did I also put it? No, I didn't. I thought maybe I threw in the Musayef Center for Kabbalah at Bar Ilan University uses this as its logo, a very versatile figure. But what is it? And it's, of course, the question is closely related to what we just looked at. I thought maybe sorry about this, probably making everybody nauseous.
This is 13th century?
This is 13th century.
And the Lehman scroll is 18th?
18th century, yeah. The Kopio, I'm pretty sure it's 18th century. His headstone was very recently found in Jerusalem on the Mount of Olives. In any case, back to this. It's very closely related to what we've just seen. I want to make more or less the same point from just a slightly different angle. But what is the meaning of this icon, and how does it relate to what we've just been talking about?
Is it the Rosh Tevot of all of the Sfirot?
It is precisely that. This is a representation of the structure of the Godhead that is fashioned from the acrostics of first initials of the 10 Sfirot. There are sometimes this is kind of a minor issue, but the 10 Sfirot do have some alternate names. So you might see, especially at the center, sometimes you'll see a mem for Malchut, sometimes you'll see an ayin for Atara. But it's the same Sfira, and it's the same idea. So just maybe you can follow it either in your book or with my cursor. The outermost Sfira is represented with the kaf of Keter, crown. Within it is a chet for Chokhmah, wisdom. Within that is a bet for Binah, understanding. Within that, in this one, is a gimel for Gedulah, used instead of Chesed. Within that is a pei for Pachad, used instead of Gvura or Din. Within that, a taf for tiferet, beauty. Within that, a nun for netzach, a hey for hod, a yud for yisod, and a mem for malchut, or alternatively an ayin for atara. Now, as soon as this is maybe, it's an odd thing to be proud of, but as soon as I saw this, I have to say, I immediately saw it as concentric circles. But I can't tell you how many people I've shown it to who have said, what are concentric circles? Do you see that this is meant to suggest concentric circles even as there isn't a single circle in the...
It actually looks like a medieval labyrinth.
Yes.
It does.
Yes.
It does indeed.
Which is strictly contemplative. It's meant as a contemplative / mnemonic.
Very nice. There's a fellow who works on a labyrinth. It is reminiscent of that. I love the comment. What I'd like to do now, I suppose, is have a quick look. Right? Okay. Let's just quickly look, slightly out of order, because in keeping with my methodology, according to which we have to first see if we can't find an accompanying text to tell us what the diagram is meant to mean before we launch into speculation. Let's have a look at how Yitzchak de Minako, one of our early Kabbalists who was active around the late 13th and early 14th century, going from Akko to Spain, in fact. He's the one who's famously visited the widow of Moshe de Leon to ask to see the Zohar in her possession after arriving after Moshe de Leon's death and being told something like, "What are you talking about? He just sat there and made stuff out of his head." That Yitzchak de Minako wrote a book called Me'irat Einaim, of which there are many manuscripts. Was only printed in our own day, but let's have a. This is a manuscript from the British Library, relatively late, but you can see it includes these diagrams, quite nice ones. And for the ease of reading, I reproduced the page in Amos Goldreich's PhD dissertation, just so you could see how Yitzchak de Minako explains it. This is it's painful to me to skip so much text to just laser focus on this one particular point here, but you can see beginning with Vizohi tzurat ha'amadatan shel eser sfirot. You'll hear this again with Cordovero. This is the form of the array. Ha'amadatan is also a term, like so many Kabbalistic terms they're using, that's taken from astronomical treatises. Can even be used like ma'aracha, as in ma'arechet Elohut, to mean constellation or the particular formation of stars in the sky. This is the form of the standing or array of the 10 sfirot, bli mahut. Means they're not physical, they don't have, based on that, as he now invokes, bli mahut v'yeshno yitbarach v'yitaleh, amen, v'zeh she'amar ha'katuv tola aretz al blima, that the world is suspended on whatever blima means there, but the Sefer Yetzirah also refers to the sfirot over and over again as eser sfirot blima, which most people, whatever it actually means or meant, take to mean some kind of, that it has no bli ma, it has no substance, it's immaterial. Bli mahut, right? Ve'al tomar eino ki yeshno, even though, don't say it's not, because it It still is, even though it's not, it is. It's a bit a Cartian or something, some kind of, what do we call that? Apophatic statement. Now, to the diagram. Kasher timna miyamincha l'smolcha. If you just kind of count it from right to left, beginning with, I think he says this is the rightmost element in the figure, timtse'em asara. You'll find that there are 10 of them. V'tireh ki kaf of ket. You'll see that the kaf is bait lekulam. That's the home of all of them. Mekif kulam surrounds all of them. Nimtza hakodem la'atzilut gadol umekif hakol. This is directly responding to you, Art, right? The earlier stage of emanation is greater and embracing, encompassing of everything. Ve'ameuchar la'atzilut. What comes later in the emanation is katan umukaf me'akol, is smaller and encompassed by everything. V'kalul mikulam, and included in v'zehu kegildei gildei bitzalim. These are like the skins of an onion. I don't know where you, or if you are familiar with this metaphor. One of the most common metaphors used by the Kabbalists comes directly from the astronomical tradition. Astronomers were using it for centuries before Kabbalists got their hands on it. The structure of the cosmic spheres is as onion skins. Also, the substance, which is also, you could say, blima of the cosmic spheres, is this crystalline substance that's called in Hebrew literature sapiri, like sapphire. And sapphire in its medieval usages is almost always transparent, crystalline, rather than, as we might think today, like blue, right? So the astronomers spoke about the crystalline spheres being like onion skins, and the Kabbalists speak about the sphirot being like onion skins, and they're called sphirot. And ukmo shehaaretz, eretz hashfela hazot, just like our low earth is ktana, is small, v'hi ba'emtza, and is in the middle of kol hanivraim, the middle of all of the created, kechardala be'askat, how do you say? It's like a mustard seed in a
Husk?
in its husk.
I'm not sure.
I don't know either.
I forget.
Anybody?
I'm sure somebody will save us. It doesn't matter though, but it's like a little mustard seed and something.
It's pod.
And it's pod? Good. V'hi klula mikol yisodot. It is inclusive of the elements, the 4 elements. V'hi be'emtza, and it's in the center, just like the heart in the body, k'mo alev shebaguf ha'adam. And then you'll see, unfortunately, somehow on the PDF of the printout, something got messed up on the PDF, but it should say, Kach kivyechol ha'ayin. So too the ayin, the atara. You might want to just amend that with your pens if you'd like. He's saying that the ayin that's at the center of this diagram is like the heart of the human body, like the earth at the center of the non-solar system, the Ptolemaic system. So this is his explanation of the diagram. It's quite straightforward.
This is evocative of some of the diagrammatics that we see in the Ayin Sod later on.
Yes, you'll see tomorrow that the first, if you say the beginning of Lurianic cosmogony in almost all of the classical tomes that come out, Etz Chaim, Sefer HaDrushim, and so forth, says we have these 2 models, how do we reconcile them? That's kind of the first task of Lurianic cosmogony, to say how do we square the linear arboreal model with the circular concentric model. Another one of the layman Ilanot is that is framed, but which means that I don't have a great picture of it. That's why I say it with some pain in my voice. Is the most ambitious effort ever made to show how these very different models can be reconciled and juxtaposed, created in 17th century Amsterdam. And Barbie has the only copy with a colophon.
Which one was that?
That is is it K85?
K85.
Yeah. Here, one second. I don't want to, actually, I probably have, let's see if I can bring it up quickly. Here, this is a teaser. This is we're really, what do you say, makdimim et ha'meuchar. But this is a Lurianic 17th century ambitious attempt to show how a linear Ilan can be juxtaposed with the concentric circle model that is on Lurianic steroids. But that is that's for tomorrow. Now, how do I get out of here? All right, back to work. Okay, we're here. Okay, now we have only about 20 minutes left. I still, with your kind permission, I want to shift now back to trees, from circles back to trees. I think possibly this is the time to have a quick look at the Bahir passages that you will find. Let's see, where did I put those? Maybe on the very next page? Almost. Page 8 is interesting. Hopefully we'll have a moment to look at that. That's another one of these very first manuscripts, the Roman copies of the Spanish manuscripts that were made in the 1280s. On the left, you can see something that it's I guess technically a rota. It's a circular diagram. It already has a kind of arboreal suggestivity to my mind as well. Hopefully we can get back to it, as well as say a few words about what you're seeing on the right, which looks probably unlike any spherotic diagram you've ever seen, mostly because it's not exactly a spherotic diagram. I want us to spend a few minutes on the Bahir text on page 9, because
This is Rome. Which one is?
this is a Roman copy from the 1280s. I believe you'll find in the PDF version, it is linked to the NLI catalog, which is in turn linked to Gallica, which has a complete high-resolution scan online at the Bibliothèque Nationale. I think it's available on Ktiv as well, but so you have to choose your interface if you like Gallica or Ktiv, but you can look at the whole manuscript. Gallick. ICA. Yeah. If you just go into the Bibliothèque Nationale website and look for manuscripts, they've scanned a tremendous number of manuscripts very well, and the Hebrew manuscripts. Yeah, fantastic job. So, in a way, I think that I can make such a strong case for the concentric circles being just perfect for the Kabbalists. I feel like the burden is on me to explain why, despite the fact that concentric circles are just fantastic for showing how the structure of the Sfirot is the same as the structure of the cosmos as we know it to be. It's if anything, it's and we see this. If you would keep making more concentric circles, you could go from the Earth through the so-called 7 planetary bodies to the orb of the intellect, or obviously you have the fixed stars, the zodiac, the fixed stars, the intellect. The Christians might then say you've arrived now at what do you call it? Having a senior moment where Christ and the saints abide beyond the fixed stars. No, they've got a better word for it. Empyrean, thank you. Perfect. Well done, David. Yes. Oh, okay. Oh, the old brain wasn't getting there. The Kabbalists say, no, you just keep on making more circles, because after you've got all those intellects that the philosophers have told us begin where the fixed stars end, well, maybe that's a good place to put perhaps the Riki'im, depending on how you define the biblical firmaments that are not generally presumed to be the same as the spheres of the planetary bodies, right? And then you might want to finish with the Riki'im, depending upon how you model the Riki'im and how you associate them. Then put Malchut, and then keep going to Keter, and then put Ein Sof outside of that, and you'll see that you have a perfect continuity, a perfect structural and conceptual continuity from Ein Sof to the earth. Why do we need a tree? Where does the tree get us? I mean, there isn't really an easy answer to that question, but I would say that, and this is something that I feel it will be even more resonant if you have a look at some point at, did I put on here? It's actually in the session 2, the Klapisch Zuber article on the genesis of the family tree, and the Anamike Verbund article on the tree of porphyry, to get a sense for what the tree could evoke for people. And so this is all good, but just let's remember that if we look at Jewish mythologomena, to use an Edelian favorite word, trees are really important. What compares with the tree of life? I mean, this is a very significant symbol going back a long way. And then in a book that is widely regarded to be either the first Kabbalistic book or some kind of proto-Kabbalistic, not exactly sure what book, but already leaning heavily in the direction of it's going to be Kabbalah in a second, the Bahir. The tree is given great weight, great significance. And there's, of course, a very established scholarly tradition of studying the meaning of this tree and the Bahir. Is the Bahir familiar by name, at least to many of you? So I don't want to get into all of that. I just want to look for a second at a couple of texts that my sense is had to have resonated with the early Kabbalists in a significant way. And we'll pick this strand up and run with it some more in session 2. Because I detect a direct correlation in the history of the visualization of the Godhead with a kind of ongoing negotiation of whether the dominant image of the divine for Kabbalists is going to be anthropomorphic or botanical. To get back to your botanical issue, what's going to be, is it going to be the tree, or is it going to be the primordial anthropos, or some man, basically, to make it simple. So coming in on the kind of strong tree frequency here is Sefer HaBahir. We don't need to read all of it, but this I took from Danny Abrams' edition, just to get the text quickly without getting crazy about manuscripts. In 87, you already see what scholars will argue about, some statement about the Sfirot and their structure. Let's see if it's here. Wait a second. That's already brought. It's interesting, actually. Even you see, it's invoking Sefer Yetzirah around in the middle. It says their hands that have 10 fingers. That is alluding to the 10 Sfirot of heaven and earth. also corresponding to the Ten Commandments. Sounds all very familiar to us at this point. The reason is, the very last thing that I put in yellow is, why are they called Sfirot? Because it says, Hashamayim Misaprim Kavod El. So that somehow the word, that the term of Sfirot, as far as the Bahir is concerned, does have that resonance with the heavens. So far, not very arboreal, but that was a kind of bridge from what we've been doing to what we're now beginning. Yes.
I'm sorry, I just, you mentioned Wilson, and I've heard now this word polarity twice, and I'm just wondering, like, keneged, is this a term for polarity?
Which thing?
The term, when he's saying keneged, he says,
I think it just means corresponding to.
Okay.
In this solid medieval tradition of saying, these are the correspondences, this is the divinas quadrinitas.
It means opposite, no?
It can certainly, but I don't think it's meant in an oppositional sense here at all. Just, midah keneged midah. Well, is that oppositional? I don't know. Maybe it is a bit.
It's oppositional with
Yeah,
the table.
yeah.
This corresponds to this.
Yes.
So you put it over against
That's
that
true.
in the table.
It's
to show that they
visually
correspond.
oppositional. That's
So
true.
they're sort of opposite.
The polarity that I mentioned before and gave him credit for including in the basic definition of Kabbalah is just simply that this system is not just 10 sfirot, but 10 sfirot that have a built-in polarity that is expressed generally in the gendered terms of, male, female, also right, left, up, down, right, top, bottom, and the maintenance and reparation of the system is, you could say, all about, the integration of those, of these polarities to make sure that the male and female are connected and not divided.
The chair's intervention, are people content with our taking a few more minutes of our lunchtime to finish this unit that Yossi has prepared?
Okay. Thank you,
I
Tanya.
just want to say as well that for the end of the paragraph, really I'm imagining that the Koteva Bahir is banking on the notion that the second half of the pasuk. I don't know if it's in manuscript form in other manuscripts, but Maseh Adav, the rest of the pasuk is Maseh Adav, Magid Arakia. So it's a reference back right to where you started, Elam Shum De'it Biyadayim Eser Eretzvaot. So it's only reproving that it's based on the hand image.
Because of Maseh Adav?
Yeah, because of Maseh Adav.
Okay, that's cool. Beseder, but still, it's the shape of the. No one ever says that the sfirot, like Talia was speaking about the hands. Yeah. No one ever says that the shape of the sfirot is the shape of the hands. We don't have the hand as a structural principle. We have it only as another example of the denary, patterned nature of our reality.
Just one more little quip about it. I've never thought about the sfirot in their arboreal format being like 10 fingertips.
Well,
but wow.
You can do Kabbalistic sign language. Yeah. Let's now, again, with apologies for doing some violence to this text, if we jump just in 14, 5 lines from the bottom, 5 or 6 lines, the general homiletical thrust of this passage is, whether the angels, when are the angels created, and do we need to be concerned about the angels taking some kind of shared credit for creation? And in answer to that, God says, these words are in God's mouth here, so to speak, beginning with the 5th word in that 5 lines up from the bottom of this paragraph. Ani, God saying, Kishenatati ilan ze, when I planted this tree, lehishta'ashea bo kol ha'olam, v'raka'ati bo hakol, וקראתי שמו קול, שהכל תלוי בו, והכל ממנו יוצא, והכל צריכין לו, ובו צופין, ולא מחכין, ומשם פורחים נשמות. אני לבדי הייתי שעשיתי אותו, ולא יגדל עליו מלאך לאמור, אני קדמתי לך. גם בעת שרקדתי ארצי, שבו נתתי ושרשתי אילן זה, ושמחתים ביחד ושמחתי בהם, מי איתי שגיליתי לו סוד זה. I'm sorry I didn't translate it word for word, but God is basically here, he sounds like a kind of righteous indignation. I'm the one who planted the tree.
Sounds like the Jobian, where were you when I made the earth?
Right.
Yeah.
And but this most primordial, first created thing, which is the first non-God, the first thing that's not God, let's say, right? The first thing God does is make the Ilan, and this Ilan is basically everything. God is mishtashea. God is delighting in it. The whole world is delighting in it. Everything is established in this framework of the Ilan. Everything depends on it. Everything flows from it. Everybody is gazing upon it. Everybody is waiting upon it. It's the channels through which souls flow through the universe. Wow. And it's the divine exclusive creation. So the Ilan is the primordial creation. Whether, again, if we go, Wolfson believes it has Jewish Christian roots. Scholem believed that it was a Gnostic symbol. And I'm not so interested even in that, and I don't know. But I do know that a seminal text of early Kabbalah has God saying the very, very, very first thing, which sounds almost divine itself, is this Ilan.
Also, I think goes back to that. There's a famous midrash on Bereshit Rabbah. You see the first and the second one. It's supposed to pasuk about mishtashea.
About like with the Leviathan or something?
No. But no, it's about the creation of the Torah actually before the world as being the blueprint. And what is it? Amon?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, but mishtashea. So, and there he refers to the Torah as a sort of pre-existent blueprint, logos, whatever you want to call it, and we can debate about that, sort of neoplatonic.
Very true.
Idea. So here the Ilan is actually replacing that.
Very nice. I will say, I should give a shout out. Although not technically speaking a study of the genre of Ilanot, there was one monograph written that gave a kind of panoramic overview of visual Kabbalistic material. It was written, published in 2005, and only in Italian, called Kabbalah Visiva by Giulio Buzzi. And Buzzi spends a lot of, I thought of it now, I thought of it before, but I wasn't sure when to throw it in. Buzzi's very interested in that midrash as a kind of precursor to this kind of architectural blueprint way of imagining creation.
He's referring to that midrash with mishtashea.
The very word.
Replacing the Torah with the Ilan,
Yafeh.
which is actually a very radical.
That's excellent. I'm not sure that Buzzi points that out. That's an excellent point. The last passage here on the page simply is to get us one step closer to closing the gap between this primordial divine tree, almost practically co-existent divine tree, with something we might recognize as the spherotic tree. And it's in the section 85 in Sholem and subsequently Abram's edition of Sefer Bahir, beginning with, and what is this Ilan that you're talking about? My have Ilan de Amart. Amarle, the response is, Kol kochotav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu hen ze al gav ze. All of the powers of the Holy Blessed One are, you might say, stacked, one upon the other. Vehen domin le'ilan. They resemble, they evoke an Ilan. They resemble an Ilan. And he continues, Ma ilan ze al yidei hamayim motzi perotav, av HaKadosh Baruch Hu al yidei hamayim marbe kochot ha'ilan. Just like a tree is watered and bears fruit, also the Holy One, blessed be He, with water, perhaps ein mayim el Torah, to go on with David's point, marbe kochot ha'ilan, that and also, again, part of that basic definition of Kabbalah being that there aren't only 10 hypostatic divine powers, but that that by doing a mitzvah, ein mayim el Torah, you strengthen the system. So al yedei hamayim marbe kochot ha'ilan. Here, of course, you get you don't make the. Here, you can say back to me, ein makshin al adrash, because the next line is umayni humayim shel Kodesh Baruch Hu. What's the water? It doesn't say mitzvahs. It says hainu chochma. It's wisdom, which is why you have some people like Ronit Miroz speaking more about Sefer, about the Bahir. I think Wolfson also has an article where he speaks about the Bahir's kind of wisdom literature with this emphasis on chokhmah. In any case, we could go on with this, but this is what I wanted you to see from the text. And in our just very last moments, I don't need to take up your lunchtime. I want you to see how the early Kabbalistic diagrams how shall I put this? I want to show you some things and ask with you, are we seeing trees? When do we start seeing trees? Where are these trees or not? And we'll continue with that after lunch. But you have on page 10, you have something. We'll begin our next session with what features on page 12. But I could also just as easily just go back to, wait, why is it doing that? No, hold on. I could go back and we could see this again. Is this a Kabbalistic tree? Obviously, it says Ilana Chochma. This diagram is to cut to the chase. This is some kind of diagrammatic representation of Sefer Yetzirah. And it isn't really a Kabbalistic diagram per se. We don't have sfirot here. For those of you who are familiar with Sefer Yetzirah, you'll see characteristic terms that show up in Sefer Yetzirah, but these are not anything like the theosophical categories that we recognize. Oof, it keeps doing this to me. Oof. Okay. Getting to know Prezi a little bit here. Is this a tree? Is this an arboreal diagram? Here you have this sfirot.
Bush.
It's a bush, huh? Okay, it says shrubbery. I think we got it. Kabbalistic shrubbery. You'll notice it has already some features that we'll see in the Ilanot that show up in our next session. But the use of the diagram to create patterned associations is an evidence here as well. You have the names of some of the biblical figures inscribed. You see Chesed Avraham, Shlomo, Chochmah, Gvura, Yitzchak, Hod, Aharon, Malchut, David, Netzach, Moshe, Yisod is Yosef and Tiferet Yaakov. One thing that's very clear in this radial presentation of the Sfirot is that it does use channels and medallions, which are the characteristic features of arboreal diagrams. But it is hardly evocative of a tree in any way. It's not even like a Porphyrian tree, really.
And it's there was a tree and a circle. This is more the circle.
This is more of a circle, but I feel like it's using it's the channels, and if you look at the general literature on diagrams and they say, well, what's an iboral diagram? They'll often say it's a diagram that uses medallions and channels to show relationships between concepts or,
Question that Ilan on the other page.
Yes.
Ilan HaChachma.
Mm-hmm.
Is Chachma there an abbreviation?
No, just an emphasized.
Oh,
That's the chupchik of bold. It's not. I don't believe it's meant to be an acrostic.
I assume it's a kind of play on Eitz Hada'at. So the Ilan HaChachma is growing out of whatever that is beneath it.
Mm.
In other words, sort of whatever the Gnostic sort of wisdom of the Sefer here is coming out of.
It could be. I mean, it's a toughie. This one is most. Here I give one more shout out. There's a book that's more ambitious theoretically than it is ambitious in terms of its coverage of material or its. Okay, let's just say this: a woman named Marla Segal has written about some early Sefer Yetzirah manuscripts, and she has made an attempt to offer an explanation of this diagram, which you can judge if it's convincing or not. But some parts of it I feel like I could explain better than others. But in any case, this is not, whatever it is, this is not a diagram of the theosophical spherotic imaging of God, whereas this one most definitely is. I can point to texts that prioritize Tiferet, the central sphera of Tiferet. This is well known, maybe amongst early modernists, as a kind of the so-called Sod HaElohut of Shabtai Tzvi, that the real thing, the real God of Israel, the real God of Shabtai Tzvi is Tiferet. But you find already very early Kabbalistic texts that also will make Tiferet the center of the constellation, and not just one among 10 Sfirot. I think that this is a diagram that was produced by either to illustrate some of those early statements that prioritize and center Tiferet, or it simply is a visualization that's in keeping with that opinion. Same diff either way. What I want to then simply end with is something that I think already, when it appears, no one would ever in the early 14th century or the late 13th century say, I have now lined up, I'm speaking about now page 10. No one would have said about this, I've lined up 3 Ilanot for you to choose from. They'll use language like tsurot, forms, or tziurim even, drawings, but not Ilanot. But these certainly do come to be recognized as the major candidates for which is the right visualization of the structure of the Godhead. This is a relatively early manuscript of a work by Shem Tov Ibn Gaon, and it's widely referenced in later Kabbalistic books. And basically, seems to be the first to line them up. Moshe de Leon also does this in Sefer Hashem. Other Kabbalists writing around the end of the 13th century, beginning of the 14th century, are doing this. So we have a few different candidates for what is the correct divine structure. And you can I'll put it maybe at some enlargement. The major candidates, as far as they were concerned, are this one on the far right, which enjoyed great popularity, especially in 15th and 16th century Italy, lining the three uppermost sphirot, lining them up, one atop of another, and following that, the fairly familiar right, left, center. We're used to seeing the central column more in alignment, but many of the sources in the classical Kabbalah say the truth is, Yisod is a little bit on the right, Malchut a little bit more on the left, so they weren't going for perfect symmetry, and you're seeing that. It's not an accident. They didn't run out of space and have to shove Malchut off to the side. That is an intentional asymmetry. And they'll also, I think I have a text for us to have a quick look at in the next session that explains why it makes perfect sense not to triangulate the first three sphirot. Some other models, some of this also has to do with the nature of the way in which Keter is understood as a sphira. This is the second one is rather unfamiliar to us, where Keter and Chokhmah are side by side, otherwise relatively familiar. And the third one is the model that will become more or less canonical, but only rather later, probably sometime in the 15th century. It's kind of becomes
The biggest difference is between the first three.
Of the first three. Yes, that's true. That's absolutely true here.
More or less.
That's absolutely true. You do see, for example, in Ma'arechet Elohut, which we'll look at after the break, that there's some, and as well as in Pardes Rimonim, which we'll have a quick look at as well, that there are people who believe that the whole right side should be on the left and the whole left side should be on the right. And then you get into whole discussions of what's called generally in art history something like heraldic perspective. Are we seeing when the divine is mapped in this way, from whose perspective is it being presented? Are we facing God and so it's mirrored? Well, we wouldn't want it to be that way because we want the right to be the right and not God's left. So are we seeing it from God's perspective? And how? Anyway, this is the kind of place that some of these discussions go to. And
A quick question: the little hat that Tiferet wears, and in this, and that Ketzer Chochmah and Binah wear on the rightmost column. Any idea what those are about?
No.
It's not the spinal column?
That it indicates something central.
Interesting question. I have to look at it again.
Just a question.
It just
What is going on with the Daleds in Hod?
again.
The Daleds in Hod, all three of them.
Oh, this kind of ornamentation, and the chet also.
No, that's a commentary that just got out of hand.
No.
He's enthusiastic scribe, huh?
Well,
They're not
something.
sort of subtly nuanced musical notations that people use.
It's always
I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, that's what I think Zach was saying, that it indicates centrality.
But you see some of them, it looks like he has maybe like quarter notes and half notes.
Yeah, filled in or not.
Right.
That's interesting.
I don't know.
We have
Food for thought.
many things to ponder.
Yes,
and
this
we
is
will
just,
come back
we're just getting out of the gate.
nourishing our
So interesting.
innards so that we can continue. Thank you, Professor
Thank you.
Chajes.